But I remember her saying, Lee, are you sure you know everything you need to know to do this flip? And I said, I know everything I can know without doing it. The rest of what I have to learn, I have to do it to learn it. I can't learn any more from a book, any more from podcasts. Maybe that wasn't 100% true, but you're going to learn as you go.
Welcome, everyone, to the Road Less Traveled Show. This is a show about people that were successful in a previous career and left that career to go down a different path. I'm your co-host, Richard Coyne.
And I'm your co-host, Bill Zahller.
On today's show, we're so pleased to have Lee Yoder with us. Lee, thanks for joining.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. I'm excited.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, thank you again for being on the Road Less Traveled Show. Well, to start with, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, what your first career was and how you got started in that?
Yeah, sure. So I went to school for forever to become a physical therapist. Got out in 2012 and started doing outpatient physical therapy. So treating guys like you and I, that might come in after work. And then also some athletes. And so that was fun. But you got to stay open later because people are coming in after work. And so I was getting home later and didn't love the schedule, and then kind of found home health physical therapy where I would drive around to people's homes. And so that wasn't as exciting or fun, but very flexible because my company would just send me my patients on my phone. So very flexible. So great for the family. But after 1 year, I was so bored. It just wasn't challenging or fulfilling. So the company I was with, I didn't really even know it at the time when I came on with them, but they're actually a startup staffing company here in Cincinnati, Ohio. So they asked me to come in and become the clinical director. And that kind of morphed into like a director of operations role. So pretty quickly, actually, I was doing no physical therapy anymore. And I was like in the office, kind of running that division, kind of building that division for the startup company and really loving it, not missing therapy at all. So this was kind of my first clue that I felt like, man, I think God made me for something different because now this was very exciting and challenging. The problem was now I did not have the flexibility, that I had with home health. So it wasn't nearly as good for the family. And now we, have two little ones at home. My wife, she's an RN. She was working PRN, but mostly staying home with the kids. So, the more I worked, the more she had to work by herself with the kids and stuff like that. And so we started to feel like, and some things at work too, typical climbing the corporate ladder thing, like felt like there was kind of this dream that they were selling me and the goalposts kept getting moved. And, but then also mostly it was just we feeling like this maybe wasn't exactly the life that God was calling us to. So started, wonder maybe what else is out there. What are the other options? And, someone hands me a real estate book and then I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And, kind of the light bulb moment that a lot of people have that, because at that time, guys, I was like, all right, so I either go back to home health physical therapy and I have a job that's good for the family, but I'm bored out of my mind. So it's not challenging and fulfilling, or I can have this exciting, challenging job, but it's not good for the family. And, Rich Dad, Poor Dad says a lot more than that, but it just said like, there's just a different way. There's a different way to look at this. You can kind of get into real estate, own your own assets, produce income outside of a job, things like that. So yeah, I got the gears turning. And so what I ended up doing was I left that corporate job. I went back to home health physical therapy. Again, the job that I didn't like, but the job that was flexible so I could start real estate as a side hustle. And so that's what I did in 2016, at the end of 2016, and kind of got started just a little under a year later, really got started in real estate.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, it's amazing, obviously, how many people, not surprisingly, but the Rich Dad, Poor Dad book, as far as, kind of just a mindset shift, and it puts them on a different trajectory. It really is a different way of looking at things. It wasn't, it's not a very actionable as far as, steps 1, 2, 3, but the concepts are, very important on that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, actually, as you transitioned into real estate, what path did you pick, and how did you go about deciding what, versus notes, fix and flip, multifamily, how'd you pick that, and what one did you decide on? Yeah,
first thing we did was flip a house. We bought a house on an online auction in our town, the town we live in. So it was, 5-7 minutes down the road. And so I did a bunch of work myself. My dad's in construction. I grew up in that. So felt comfortable with that and felt like, we could kind of control that just by, frankly, just working. Like we'll control costs because I'll do the work, and I don't have to pay myself until the end when we make money. And my wife was not nearly as all in on real estate as I was. So just felt like this was a way to start small. I mean, we just doing some math, we could afford the mortgage on that house and on our house. We had a home equity line of credit that we took out to be able to do all the rehab. We could afford the payment on that. So it felt like, lower downside risk, where, hey, if everything goes wrong, we're just paying off the mortgage on 2 houses. Right. And that's, it's a good way to think of it, because it's like, my wife is like kind of worst case scenario. And I'm like, well, that's the worst case scenario. And that's not that bad. Right. We're not living on the street. We still have our house, and we're just paying off the mortgage on another house. And that's, that'll end up being a decent investment anyway. But we did okay on that. We made a good amount of money, more than I thought we would, a lot more than my wife thought we would. But it was because I did a bunch of the work. I kind of kept track because I wanted to know, and I put over 500 hours into that house while I was working full time. Granted, not a real taxing, busy job. But the funny thing is, guys, I took probably a $30,000 pay cut when I left the corporate job and went back to home health physical therapy. And that's what we made on that flip. And when I was doing the flip, I was just about as busy as I was at that previous job between the flip and my full-time job as a home health physical therapist. So it was like this perfect picture of flipping is not investing. Flipping is just a different job, because I was doing a very busy job, making a certain amount, took a pay cut to do a not so busy job, but added a flip on top of it. So now I'm busy and I make the same amount, but I'm done and it's gone. And now I got to go do something else. So it only took us one flip. After that, we jumped into a duplex, because it was like, and then I'm listening to podcasts like your guys the whole time. So I knew I had people in my ears saying flipping's not investing. You want to own stuff, you want to rent it out, you want to hold it long-term, things like that. But it was just a way to start small. And, that extra 30 grand, we didn't need that. We were living off, my salary. So, hey, let's put that toward the next one. So it was a great starting point. But at the same time, it only took one for me to go, we're not going to be flippers. We're going to, buy rentals.
Excellent. So, and then you transitioned to the duplex, and then is that the plan from this point forward, is more multifamilies exclusively?
Yeah, sure. So we did one each year. So 2017, we flipped that house. 2018, we bought a duplex again in our hometown and bought it at the county auction this time. Used our home equity line of credit again, bought it ourselves, rehabbed it. That one we kept for almost a year and rented it out. Got a little experience of what it's like to be a landlord. Figured out I didn't want to do that. I mean, we had a great residence. They were easy, but I didn't like that. And again, still listening to podcasts and this isn't real scalable, because when you get that, we bought that one really well. So I was sitting there and I'm not going to get the numbers right, but we might've been making, I don't know, maybe even, $600-800 a month. And that's great for duplex. I mean, right. That's great, yeah. Right. $300 or $400 per unit. That's fantastic. But at the same time, it's like, let's say it was 600. Okay. This is, 7,200 a year. We got to do maybe 10 of these to kind of hit that financial freedom number. And I didn't want to do 10 of those. And I didn't want to manage them myself. And so anyway, so that was 2018 about that. In 2019, we did go bigger, joined the real estate group here in Cincinnati, which helped with this. And we can get into that. But I bought a 16 unit, an 8 unit, and a 10 unit in the fall and winter of 2019. Now I'll just fast forward. We took a year to kind of turn all those around, actually sold all of those. Selling those gave us kind of this big cushion, this runway for me to quit and go full time. And in 2021, we started syndicating, and we've done 4 apartments, and we have 283 units today.
Nice. That's great. Yeah. Nice. All in Cincinnati area, or?
Three of the ones we own today are in Dayton, and 1 is in Cincinnati.
Okay. Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, that you sort of want to get into it. So again, we always advise, listen, you got to do something, take action, do something, learn, absolutely, be smart about it. Don't go into something blindly, but at the same point in time, you got to take action. And, in my case, it was, I needed to kind of come up with some sort of side hustle type thing. So I bought a single family with my wife, and, I'd love to be able to buy foreclosures like you talked about there in Ohio. Evidently, the laws are different than they are in North Carolina, because in North Carolina, they have a crazy 10-day upset rule. So you put a bid, and then the clerk of the court posts the next price, and anybody can walk in up to the last minute and bid that price and take it away from me, which is just ridiculous, because it's just cycles and cycles and cycles. There was a local business here that went into foreclosure the building, et cetera. And it got into bidding war. It drug on for months. And I want to say that it went from initial price of probably like 350 to almost double that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense.
No, we don't. It's not like that here. There's not as good. I mean, as you can imagine, when I bought that one in 2018, you can't find as good a deals today.
Right.
But yeah, it's just, whoever wins, has
to. Exactly. Yep. Yeah. I mean, again, that's a reasonable process. What North Carolina does is just nuts. Anyway, I'm not a legislature and I don't make the laws, so I just have to live with them, I guess. Right. Yep. But anyway, right. So Lee, as you look back, maybe in your physical therapy days, you tell us whether it's the corporate job or the initial physical therapy work, or perhaps maybe, the home health. Is there a funny story you can share? Something that happened to you along the way, kind of made you scratch your head and say, why am I doing this?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of funny stories with home health physical therapy. Some are fit for this podcast, and some probably aren't, because I'm going into people's homes. So I see a lot, and I work in a lot of lower income areas, and some older folks. Unfortunately, it's kind of sad. Like, a lot of them don't live very well and don't have much help, and so I've seen some wild things. I mean, and then I've been around a lot of bugs. And, bed bugs and stuff like that. And so my wife, I'd get home, she'd make me take off all my clothes in the garage before I'd come in the house. There was one time I was, I like telling the story, so I'm telling her about the bed bugs, and she's like, just take your clothes out to the burn pile and burn them. We're not bringing them in the house. But it's kind of funny, guys. One cool thing is, one of the apartment buildings, this was just a little 10 unit. I had treated multiple patients in there, and we ended up buying that property. So that was really neat. One of the guys there that lived there when we bought it, I had treated him. So just kind of cool, because I remember walking around it's four buildings. Then we were out walking around the building he lived in, and I was just asking, who owns this place? Do you know anything about the owners of this place? Because I, was, getting into real estate at the time and wanted to buy it, and then I ended up buying it. So that was kind of neat. I feel like that was just kind of God's plan of, how I progressed into it. But yeah, I mean, my goodness, there's wild stories in home health, because you're going into people's homes, so you see a lot of interesting things.
I can only imagine.
Exactly. Well, Lee, what was a deciding factor for you changing career paths? You'd mentioned, was it more just more control of your schedule, more time with the family, kind of in charge of that part of it? Was it kind of a driving factor? Or?
That was definitely the driving factor. I mean, it's tough. I mean, it's easy to say, I want to put my family first. For us, we're, as Christ followers, our faith comes first, and then our family and friends and stuff like that. But it's hard. I really enjoy working. So with that job, it's kind of easy for me to get consumed by it, and that ends up being my number one. And there have been times like that, and there's still times like that today. But at the same time, I'm always plugged in to my church and guys at my church. And then obviously my wife is my number one. And just talking and feeling like, with this job, I really can't put my faith first and then my family. And it goes on for a while and it doesn't get better. And you say, okay, at some point we got to do something else. But I wouldn't have just jumped unless I got really excited about real estate first, which I did. And so I saw what I felt like could be, now didn't know, but felt like, okay, this could be even better, because I could have the best of both worlds, where I can work really hard, but I can control it. I can do it when I want, because with my company, and things are so different now after COVID, but with our company then, they just wanted you in the office as much as possible. That was like the number one thing you could do. I felt like to show management that you should be promoted or something was, how many hours are you at the office? And that stinks, for me. Because I was getting up at 4 a.m. at the time, just working, because I thought, if I get up at 4, I can work, but not lose time with my family. In the company, sure, they appreciate that, but it's like, yeah, but you still got to be in here, 9-10 hours a day, or, whatever it is, because everybody else is. So you should be that's just bonus for us, that you get up in the morning and work. Whereas now, if I do that, that counts. I can take off the afternoon if I want. So those were the driving factors.
I tell you what, it's amazing how, COVID proved it.
Yeah.
Motivated people can get their job done anywhere. You don't have to have somebody staring over your shoulder and somebody watching a clock to see, oh, wait a second, you're here a minute after you're supposed to start, what the heck is that all about? So it is amazing. And, again, of course, there's, what I found is a very humorous argument is that, oh, well, we don't know if people are going to be responsible and get their job done. And, they might be just, doing personal errands on company time. And I'm like, look, did you get the job done or not? Is the job, is it done? Yeah. Then it's done. Again, I'm a motivated person that's going to find the next task to do after the job's done. But at the same point in time, but also at the same point in time, something people never think about is how much time is lost in the office with having the water cooler conversations about the football game last night and, about this event and that event. And, oh, did you catch the Grammys last night? Who cares? But
did you not watch Office Space? That movie.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I think I like to tell that part of the story, because I think more than ever today, more people have this opportunity to have some of the flexibility and some of the margin to go start real estate as a side hustle, which I think is a great way to do it. Work for me. So, before, again, if I was at that corporate job, I would not have been able to do that. Mm-hmm. It was because I took a job that had more flexibility that I could start real estate as a side hustle, and it's, changed my life for the better, for sure. So hopefully more people have that opportunity today.
You mentioned something that I absolutely love, and that is that you talked about your priorities and what works for your family and things like that. And there's Andy Stanley had a sermon years ago, and the title of it was, "Who are you going to cheat?" And it's kind of inflammatory when you hear that title, but his point is, you're either cheating your family or you're cheating your job, or you can't go 110% on every single thing. You have to have, some give and take and flexibility, both, and certainly in your family life, but at the same point in your work life. If you've got somebody who like you mentioned, that former employer that's watching the clock, and oh, you're already here for your 8 hours. Oh, you stay 10 because you're the department head, and now it becomes 12 hours. And okay, well, it's important that you to be here, because we need to see that happening. You're cheating your family, and you might be advancing your career, but you got to keep a balance. And sure. I think that's super important. And you guys obviously have that in mind. So that's great. Well done. Yeah. So Lee, as you think back, as you started moving in the direction of doing real estate, you talked about, the first one, you were able to, do a lot of the work yourself. Again, that's fantastic that you're able to do that. So that helped keep the margin for you to make money, solid. But as you start shifting and really scaling up, and kind of really finding the path that was going to be right for you, it wasn't a single family. So it wasn't just the duplex. It was kind of going bigger. Is there an obstacle in there somewhere that you can share that you had to overcome?
Oh yeah. Just, there's definitely, limiting beliefs and things like that, when we did the flip, we did the duplex, and then the third property that we did was a 16 unit. And it felt like just the biggest mountain, we could ever have climbed. And, not only just, hey, 16 units versus 2, my goodness, this is 8 times, the number of units, things like that. It's expensive. We got to bring in an investor this time. But it's like, how do you manage that many people? Because managing 2 people felt overwhelming. Again, and you just wonder, are you doing things right? Are we having them sign the right lease? And like, when things are going well, it's okay. But what happens when we actually have to evict somebody? Because I didn't have that with the duplex. And, what happens when things go wrong? So just so many questions. And I'll tell you that the way we overcame that, and the way we continue to overcome that, is you partner with a property management company. Because when you partner with a property management company, the one we partner with, they're not that big. They manage like 1,000 units, but just in Dayton. So for them, 16 units, that's nothing, right? I mean, that's 1.6% of their portfolio. So that's nothing. I mean, they bring that on. Oh, that's it. So all of a sudden, this massive mountain, when you partner with the right people, it's a molehill. That's nothing. That's 16 units. We had 1,000. That's no big deal. Whereas for us, we had 0, going to 16. The biggest we'd ever done was 2. So that's how you overcome that, in my opinion. I mean, as soon as we start talking to them and you're like, what even happens on day one? What happens when we take over? And they're like, oh, well, we go out there, we knock on every door, try to meet every resident. If we don't, we put a piece of paper on the door or slide it under the door so they can get that tells them all about us and who we are and how to contact us and where to contact if you have maintenance requests and where to send your rent. And we'll just take care of it all.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh, okay. That's going to be easy for me then, because you're going to take care of it all. So that was, to me, that's a very big hurdle when you want to go to multifamily, but you partner with property management and suddenly it's like, oh, they're going to take care of all that.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, as you look back, as Richard was talking about, as you're making the transition, can you look back to something that was your first victory? Could be the fix and flip that was your first, foray into real estate, or was it the buying the the duplex or the 16 unit? When you really made the click, like this is a viable path, I can make a career out of this full time?
Yeah. It was those, I bought the 16 unit, the 8 unit, and the 10 unit at the same time, within a few months or whatever. Once we started getting those stabilized, we put a lot of time into them, had some investors, but, after a while, and there were some pretty heavy value adds, but the cash flow started coming in, and you started seeing, even as we were doing it, was like, okay, if we weren't spending so much money on, CapEx and stuff, if we really just look at rental income versus like what a normal month's expenses might look like, these properties are cash flowing. And then you start doing the numbers and you're like, okay, this is legit. I think if I would have gotten, because I sold off 2 before the third one was fully stabilized, but basic numbers, like if I'd had them all stabilized, my income from those would have been about $30,000. Again, not lighting anybody's hair on fire, but at the same time, that's with them being managed by somebody else, renovated. So, if I held them today, I would spend very little time on them. And, $30,000 a year is, maybe a third of the way to me living a very comfortable lifestyle with very little work. So just kind of seeing those numbers, projecting ahead, seeing how that's going. And again, that 30,000 a year, that's with, even 5 to 10% vacancy. It doesn't have to be perfect. We were in at a good price, and fixed interest and things like that. So it just felt like, man, this is stable. This is conservative. This is safe. But it's a nice, solid return, and it's scalable because somebody else is managing it. So I could go again, back to the duplex. It was like, I don't want to do this 10 more times, manage it myself and own these little, own 10 different buildings. It was like, with these, it's, just 3 properties and we're already 3, way beyond what we were making with the duplex. So that was kind of the light bulb moment. And what was cool, guys, the reason we decided to do more of it and, move towards syndication, bring on more investors, is because I was making that much, but so were my investors who were doing nothing. We were we did those as joint ventures, which is a great way to get started if you've got just a couple people that want to get in and do some smaller deals. So I kept 50%, they kept 50%. So it was great for them too.
Yeah. And what people need to keep in mind is that, again, a 16, an 8, whatever, don't let it overwhelm you. Think of it as a business. You're buying a business,
right?
And you're running a business, and hopefully you've got team members that are like property management that are part of your team that are actually doing the day-to-day work for you. But you run a business, you treat it like a business. You got to obviously, make sure you're holding people accountable on all sides. But at the same point in time, you're running a business, and that business does not need to consume you. That business does not need to take all of your time. And then you buy then you buy another business. Next thing you know, you got multiple businesses going, right?
Exactly. Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. So Lee, just checking to see where things are. Where are you on your path? Where do you see things going from here?
Yeah. Right now, we just want to do more of the same. The last 2 properties we bought a 95 unit in December, and we bought a 96 unit in December, and we closed on a 95 unit in May. One was in Dayton, one was in Cincinnati. We're working with a new property manager on the property we just closed on, and we're actually moving our other properties over to them. They're more the model, where you pay for the payroll of the employees versus, what we were doing before, because we started kind of small and building up. The model that most property management companies do that manage an 8 unit or a 4 unit or a 10 unit, they'll charge you a flat fee, and then they may charge you like the first month's rent. So that's what we were used to. We would pay 8% of total income, and then we would, whenever they filled a unit, they would keep that first month's rent. Right. So it may be in total like 11 or 12% is probably about what you're paying them in a fee. But the thing you got to keep in mind is that your maintenance expenses are going to be pretty high, because every time somebody goes out to the property, you're paying for that. You're paying for their time. And I mean, our property management, there's some overhead and stuff. So it was like $65 an hour to get somebody out to the property. So now we're using a model with the new property management company where we pay all the expenses. We pay the payroll, but those people do all the work. So there's not costs on top of that. And then we pay the marketing and advertising costs. So we pay all the costs for the property, and then we just pay a 4% fee on top of that. So it's 4%, but don't let that fool you. It's 4% on top of all the expenses. So that's just their profit.
Sure.
But this company's just set up differently. They have people on site. They have people, and they just really drive rent. So we're really excited. So honestly, we were a little bit kind of paused on new purchases right now. And we're just really trying to get our portfolio together. And that's just maybe for the next month or so, or two, as we transition everybody. But we're excited about that. Like I said, we have 283 units across 4 properties, and we're getting them all switched over to the new property management company. So excited about that. But yeah, the next thing we want to do is buy more. We really like being right around that 100 units. We'd like to be 100 units and up. The more, the bigger you get, the bigger the competition. And it's some stiff competition I've found out this year, as we've, when we closed on that 96 unit in December, I was bought in like, I'll never buy anything less than, 100 units. Well, it's easy to say, but the cap rates I've found are usually more compressed the bigger you go, because the bigger players, have a lower cost of capital a lot of times and are okay, holding longer and they're able to, and that's great. I mean, more power to them. But they, in my experience, 150 units in this area, you'll pay, 20 to 50,000 more per unit just because it's 150 units instead of 40 units. Mm-hmm. So we'd like to be bigger because we love having full-time staff on site. Makes a lot of sense. And not only would I say the property, like they're going to be able to drive revenue better and things like that, like they just manage the property better. The maintenance requests are much quicker. People are happier, it stays full, things like that. So we love that. We want to do more of that, but it is, it's competitive in that space. So
sure,
we're going to keep moving in that direction.
Yep. Makes sense. Yeah. So Lee, is there something that you can share with us that you do to give back? Maybe it's through your personal life, for your business, something that you can share?
Yeah, my wife and I have been focusing on here lately. For the past few years that we've been getting into it is trying to get back to our residents, and we have young kids. They're 8 and 6, and so we like to really involve them to try to show them, hey, God has really blessed us, but He's asking us to be a steward of these properties and the income that they produce for us and things like that. So we like to take them out and give back to the residents, and usually that's around holidays, just trying to give them a nice gift and a gift card, and so we'll take the kids out and make them put it on each doorknob, things like that. We go out too. I want to teach my kids good work ethic, so we often go out and pick up trash for the residents, trying to make the property look nicer. So we spend time at the property trying to keep it nice, and then just those little gifts around the holidays is what we've enjoyed doing so far. We'd love to do more and more, but that's what we've been able to do so far.
Nice,
excellent. Well, Lee, is there something you've recently implemented in your business that's allowed you to scale as you're going into larger and larger properties?
What I'll say right now, because it's literally what I was working on today. We feel like our property management companies, they send us a report every month. We know the income, the expenses, and so we're not missing anything. But one thing I don't feel like we're doing enough of is kind of pulling out the most important data. And I guess you guys know the term KPIs, your key performance indicators. I don't feel like we have that nailed down where we say, hey, every month, and some of it needs to be every week. Like, what's our vacancy every week? What, how many units we have? How long is it taking to turn units? Like, we're just not quite tight enough. So we're adding in, we kind of have some spreadsheets where we track our P&Ls. Hey, here's our income. Property management company sends that to us, and we pull out some stuff. But I want to kind of take that to the next level and keep drilling down and have some spreadsheets where we're tracking our KPIs. And so we're able to look at that on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, and say, how are our properties performing? Maybe some things get flagged, and that's what you follow up with your property management company on, because our job is to manage the managers. Right. But we need to be tracking that to be able to flag certain things, to be able to go to them and say, this doesn't look like what we want it to look like. This doesn't look like what we talked about. Why is this expense so high? Why are the unit turns taking so long? Why is our vacancy, this high? Things like that. We're not, we're doing some of that. I just feel like we can do even better with that. So that's something we're trying to incorporate right now to be better asset managers.
Nice. Yeah. Makes a ton of sense. Again, continuous improvement. You got to Kaizen. You got to, take where you are, figure out how to work it, get better, improve every step. Just an inch helps.
Yeah.
So just a little step in the right direction helps to just, it'll magnify over time, but again, you got to kind of take that mindset where how can we do better? So I love that. So yeah, great.
Yep.
Lee, what advice would you share with somebody who's considering making a path change?
I would say, a couple of things you mentioned it before, Richard, but just get started. So, I like the saying, and different guys say it. I don't know who maybe said it first, but just think big, but start small. I think anybody that really wants to get into it, hey, you can own 10,000 units someday. That's what's possible in America. And if you network well and work hard and you stay consistent over a long period of time, you could absolutely own 10,000 units. But it's not going to start most likely with a 100-unit apartment building. It's probably going to start with a duplex or a single family home, or maybe a quad, a house hack. You take one unit, rent out the other 3 in a quad, and do something like that. So start small, get started. I think you just kind of said it, Richard, like just take a step each day. I really like the book, The Compound Effect. I don't know if you guys know that one by Darren Hardy. And it's just this idea of compounding interest, basically. So have you heard the thing, like if somebody offers you, I don't know what it is, $2 million today, or they give you a penny today, but they double the amount of money they give you every day. And you just can't imagine that, okay, if you give me a penny today, you give me 2 pennies tomorrow, 4 pennies the next day, 8 pennies. You just cannot imagine that that's going to catch up to $2 million. But I think it's like over 5 million by day 30, right? And then if you keep going, day 31, you're over 10 million. Day 32, you're over 20 million. I mean, compound interest is ridiculous, but I think that's how real estate works, especially if you get into multifamily. It takes a long time to get started. And if you look at my path, in 1 year, all I did was one flip. That's it. The next year, all I did was a duplex. That's it. So after 2 years, I owned 2 units. And then in the 3rd year, though, I got 34. And so kind of this boom, right? And then now it's 283, but, 5 years later, but it starts very slow and very small. So if you can keep that mindset, but again, I would still have 0 units if I didn't do that flip. So you can dream big, it can happen, but you got to get started.
That's right.
Yep, absolutely. Good advice. I mean, like I said, it all built, and your knowledge too, right? I mean, no matter how much you read, you're never going to be prepared until you actually take action and move forward.
Yes.
You don't know what you don't know until you get out there and actually start doing it day to day, day in and day out.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, when we were doing the flip, my wife, again, much more risk adverse, which is good to have on your team. That's why God put us together. We make a good team that way. But I remember her saying, Lee, are you sure you know everything you need to know to do this flip? And I said, I know everything I can know without doing it. Right. The rest of what I have to learn, I have to do it to learn it. I can't learn any more from a book, any more from podcasts. Maybe that wasn't 100% true, but pretty much it was. The rest of what I have to learn, I hope everybody knows that you don't have to know everything. Again, you guys mentioned you got to be educated. Maybe you get a partner, but you're going to learn as you go. As long as you know this isn't going to sink us, this isn't going to lead us down a path of losing our home and the wife and the kids are out on the street, which is almost never the case. Then go for it, and you'll learn as you go.
Right. Yep. I mean, and you hear that from, the most accomplished real estate investors. I mean, like Sam Zell, you listen to him and he says he learns things. I mean, obviously he's, phenomenal real estate investor, been doing it decades. And he's still, still, and the main thing you just talked about there, as far as, he looks for mitigating the downside risk. If you take care of the downside risk, then the upside will take care of itself. As long as you're not going to go to zero on it, then.
Yes. Right. Yeah. Yep.
Well, Lee, what's the best way for our listeners to reach out and learn more about what you have going on?
Yeah, sure. I'd love for them to jump on our website. It's Threefold, THREFOLD, and then REI as in realestateinvesting.com. So threefoldrei.com. You can, sign up for a monthly newsletter there. We got a free ebook called 5 Steps to passive income for the full-time dad. You can check out, what we're doing there. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn if you just look up my name, Lee Yoder, but our website is the best place to go.
Okay. Well, very good. Excellent. We'll put those links in the show notes below. And want to thank you for being on the Road Less Traveled show. Really enjoyed the conversation and wish you continued success.
Thank you. Thanks, Bill and Richard. It was a lot of fun to be on.
Absolutely. We definitely want to thank you for being on. We'd also like to thank our listeners. Please continue to give us a 5-star rating so we can bring you more great content like our guest today, Lee Yoder. And we'd also like to remind everybody of a couple of things Park Capital Partners has going on. First of all, we have the Park Capital Partner Value Add Fund, which is a 506c fund open to accredited investors right now. And we also created the Park Capital Partners Foundation. It is a 501(c) nonprofit that Bill and I created. And the way that works, just to give you a quick sneak peek, is that Park Capital Partners funds the operation of the foundation. So all the money donated goes to do its best work, and that is to help others. Second of all, we donate a portion of our profits. We personally donate to the foundation. And finally, when investors invest with us, we make a donation to honor that investor and let the investor pick from a predetermined list of 15 different charities. So we invite you to reach out, say hello, let us know what's on your mind. Happy to help you. We're happy to have a conversation anytime, and reach us on parkcapitalpartnersllc.com. And thanks for joining, folks. We really appreciate it. And remember, everyone, the road less traveled may be calling you. We recommend that you listen and take action. Thanks for joining.